the Assistant Director for Student Services here, and I'm also the Transition Coordinator. And we were lucky enough to have Kathy join us with a partnership between the district and WACA, so the Washtenaw Association for Community Advocacy. So this is actually the first of 3 presentations that Kathy is going to be doing. We have one, obviously, tonight. We have another one in February on guardianship, and then our third one is going to be in April on CMH. So we'll get all that information out to you ahead of time, but this was kind of in response to a survey that we had from parents last year about getting information out earlier to our families. And then Kathy had this partnership that she approached the district about, and it was a win-win. So without any more explanation, I'm going to turn it over to her. And thank you very much.
Thank you. What a nice introduction. We actually got a really nice little grant from Kiwanis to do some transition training. When I talked to Monica, it was really great timing. I talked to Molly first, and I said, parents aren't getting this information in a timely fashion. At 18, we put you in a room and say, here's CMH, here's MRS, here's Social Security, now get that all down. And as Paula knows so well, it's overwhelming. So we said, get it out there earlier. Get it out there more often. Tell parents more than once. Social Security can be a week's worth of training, easily. We're not going to do that to you tonight. We're just going to give you some introductions and hope you know some more when you leave about Social Security than when you started. All right? And I don't know how to flip the... I'm not a Mac person. I apologize.
I can be your page turner.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to let you know who I am. I am from Saline. My name is Kathy Holman. I have 2 graduates from Saline High School. That's Sam there on the right, well, your left, and Christine on the right. Christine was born with Turner syndrome. She's missing an X chromosome. She's a 45XO. And when she was born, they asked us if we were going to institutionalize her. Pretty tough question in the hospital when you've just had a baby. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Christine went on to graduate from Michigan State in 4 years with 2 degrees. She spent 26 months in Ethiopia in Peace Corps, and then she did her graduate work at Columbia University in New York. Sam, my schluffy child, went to that other school, that blue school. Sam has dyslexia, so I have one of each, State and U of M. And Sam graduated in German and statistics. So I started out my world in Social Security as a community work incentive coordinator. We love acronyms. So if I start saying acronyms that you don't understand, please just stop me. It's not offensive to me. A community work incentive coordinator with Social Security. I went for a week's training and then I did 9 weeks of testing. So I was trained and certified through Social Security to know all the Social Security work rules. Then I went on to be a work incentive coordinator because that's how creative Social Security is with their naming for the bond project, which was one of the dumbest names Social Security ever gave something, because a lot of people were on bond, so they wouldn't answer us when we called. And it was a demonstration, benefits offset national demonstration. It failed because Social Security never puts their whole heart into anything. And then I was the statewide benefits information network training, which means I did those 2 top things for the state of Michigan, to MRS, to CMH, to all of those folks. So I've got a little bit of experience in Social Security. And then now I'm the president and CEO of Washtenaw Association for Community Advocacy. Some of you know us. We do advocacy for people with developmental disabilities, birth to death. So tonight we're going to talk about the definition of Social Security, defined kind of what it is, what developmental disability looks like at Social Security. We're going to touch on Medicare and Medicaid, and we're going to talk about the application process, which is what everybody really wants to know about. So this is Social Security speak that you see. When you get those letters, can I ask real quick, anybody have kids on Social Security already? SSI? SSI? Mm-hmm. No, you're too smart for this group. And others of you are going to be approaching that in the future. Okay, so this is Social Security speak. They have their lawyers write everything. So this says a number holder. Any idea what a number holder is? That's all of you. You have a Social Security card, you're a number holder. That's what they call you. Must be unable to engage in substantial gainful activity. We're not going to go there yet. By reason of any medically determinable physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to result in death or has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. That's what they say. Okay, I gotta, I don't know how to do it. Show me the button and I'll do it.
Right here. Here you go.
Oh, you have to hit both?
Yeah.
So all this means is the person must have a qualifying impairment. The person must be unable to perform SGA. It means work over a certain dollar amount. It means a little bit more than that, but for this definition, we're going to say work over a certain dollar amount. And thirdly, the condition must meet the duration of the requirement. Has to last for 12 months. It's already lasted for 12 months, or it's going to be expected to last for 12 months. That's what that first paragraph meant. So then there's a different definition for kids who are on Social Security, and they wouldn't be on Social Security, but for this purpose, we're going to say this. For under your 18 years of age, it has that same, must have a disability, an impairment, but it's a marked and severe functional limitations. So we're going to look at what the child can do and what they can't do, and is it enough to qualify for a benefit. So Kristen said, are you going to use your sun and your moon? And I said, yeah. And then she went, oh. So I used circles and squares instead. Kristen works in my office. She's great. So Social Security Administration, SSA, as we like to say, has two sides for disability. And I bet none of you knew this. Well, probably you do. You have the Supplemental Security Insurance side, SSI, which gets a cash benefit and a medical benefit. And then you have the Social Security Disability Insurance side, SSDI, that has a cash benefit and a medical benefit. But the two sides are extremely different from each other. So anytime I'm talking about the DI side, it's a circle instead of a sun or whatever I had before. And anytime I'm talking about the SSI side, I'm on a square. All right? All right. So Social Security Disability Insurance. This is a Social Security program. Social Security Disability Insurance is a Social Security program run by Social Security. It's payable to a worker and sometimes a family member of the worker who has enough work credits to qualify and has a qualifying disability. That's how you get Social Security disability on the Social Security disability side. You have to have enough credits. You had to pay into the system to get back out on this side. Or a parent. And we're going to talk about that. I like to think of Social Security as an infomercial, but wait, there's more, because it really isn't cut and dry. So when we say, how much did you have to work to qualify, we call them quarters of coverage. That's what Social Security, how much did you earn? So for 2019, I just skipped ahead a year because we're almost over with 18. For 2019, it's $1,360 of gross earnings, and they say this in the book, in a 3-month period, or $5,440 in a year, would equal 4 quarters of coverage, and that's the most you can earn in a year for Social Security. Anybody, any worker, anybody. And if you're 31 or over, you need 10 years worth of quarters of coverage to qualify for Social Security disability programs along with a disability, qualifying disability. If you're less than 31, it's less than that, and it's sliding scale. But if you're under 24, you need 6 quarters of coverage. 6. So you need 6 3-month periods where you earn $1,360 in a 3-month period. 6 quarters of coverage is a year and a half worth of work. If you have a qualifying disability and you're under 24 and you have 6 quarters of coverage, you can get Social Security disability. I have kids that young on Social Security disability. It's great, off their own records. And they only go by each calendar year. You can't do a September to a September or an October through an October. It's only a calendar year because this number changes every year. Yep, ask away.
So what about people who are not able to work?
We're going to get there too. But wait, there's more. Sure. It has to be at least $1,360 in a 3-month period. And we used to say a 3-month period, and I'm glad you asked this. It can just be the year divided. If it's, can we go back one slide? Yeah. If it's at $5,440 in a year, they just divide it by 4, and yes, you have. So if you've made this much in a year, you've got 4 quarters of coverage.
But no more than that.
No more than that.
But
That's,
no less than
Yep.
Has to be exactly that.
What does it have to be? It could be more. You're just not going to get any more quarters. You're only going to get 4.
Oh, okay.
So you can make $20,000 and you've got your 4 quarters of coverage. But this is the minimum for 1 quarter, and this is what you need for 4. Does that make sense?
Not really, but
Okay, it's a number that they pick every time. We used to report wages monthly, but now we report them yearly, the IRS does. So they jumped up to this, but you'll see this as a number when you're looking at the Social Security site, so I don't want you to be confused.
If somebody made like $2,000 for the year,
Then you'd have
They would get one.
1 quarter of coverage.
it's like supplemental
Hmm.
then, in a sense.
for when they retire.
Yeah, for when you retire, for your retirement, this is what they're looking at. These are your quarters of coverage. How much did you work? And you have to have, once you're over 31, at least 10 years, 40 quarters, right? 10 years worth of work in the last 20 years to be fully insured. So those people that don't work before retirement age for a long time and then say, I'm going to collect Social Security. No, you're not. It has to be within a certain amount of time, even for retirement. Social Security will get you every which way. But it's kind of nice. And this is another thing you guys should go out and look for if you're getting Social Security. They publish this great calendar every year that says when you get paid. And when you get paid depending on what benefit you have. It'll tell you when to expect your check, because it does change. So we're still on the disability insurance side. And on this DI side, we have Social Security disability insurance. We have disabled adult child. Uh-oh, did I run you away already? Okay. We have disabled adult child. We call them DACs in the state of Michigan. Social Security also calls it Childhood Disability Benefit, CDB, same thing. Because we can't ever have too many acronyms. So if you see these two are interchangeable. And then here's, I gotta say this slowly. This is disabled widow or widower's benefit. At one point I was doing this lecture and I said divorced widow or widow's benefit. People were like, I can get divorced and get Social Security? No, you can't. We're still on the DI side. This is paid for when you go to work, you pay taxes. You pay FICA, right? You pay FICA and your employer pays FICA for a total of 15.3% on every dollar you earn. So that's how Social Security system is paid for, off of your earnings and wages, and that's why you collect when you work. If you're self-employed, you pay both of them, exactly. Now I'm gonna see if I can do this, guys. I'm supposed to do this, I think.
Just a little arrow.
Just a little arrow. Oh, I have my glasses on. Now you're asking a lot. Sorry.
That's okay. There we go.
Okay. So it's an insurance program based on work history. There is no resource limit on the DI side. No resource limit. If you are Bill Gates and you become disabled tomorrow, you can collect Social Security disability insurance because I'm sure he's got the quarters of coverage for his earnings. There is no resource limit on the DI side. There's a 5-month wait period for your cash benefit from the time you get approved. There's Medicare eligibility after 2 years, because you can be disabled, but you can't have insurance. And you must be 18 years of age for Social Security disability insurance. Okay? Let's do another one. This disabled adult child, this DAC benefit that we talked about, is a person who is unmarried, who is 18 or over, whose disability began before age 22, and we've got a sheet to cover that before age 22. They can draw from parents' earning record if, and only if, the parent is drawing Social Security disability, the parent is drawing Social Security retirement, not retired from Ford or GM, drawing Social Security retirement, and or the parent is deceased and had enough work credits for the child to draw off of that. And this is our disabled widow or widowers, and we don't have too many of these. These are payable under these conditions, so we won't really go into that too much today. Now we're on the other side, the square side. This is supplemental security income. This is the other side. This is not a Social Security program. Social Security administers it, Social Security oversees it. It is not a Social Security program. It's what we used to call welfare. We gave it a much nicer name, I think. And it is for individuals who demonstrate an economic need, are 65 or older, or have a disability. This is under Title 19, I'm sorry, I'm doing it wrong, 16 on the Social Security side. And this comes from your general tax dollars. This isn't paid into Social Security. This is everybody paying into this. All right. You have to have a disability. Here's that resource limit. You have to have resources if you're a single individual of under 2,000. And when we're talking resources, I'm going to look at your bank accounts. I'm going to look at your savings accounts. I'm going to look, do you have stocks? Do you have bonds? I'm going to look, did grandma put a bunch of savings bonds in your name? Because as the government, I'm going to know. The two branches of government that do a great job of talking to each other are the IRS and Social Security. They are hooked up. So if you think you're going to hide something from them, they're going to find it and you will have a penalty for it. Don't do that. Just get rid of it. You get Medicaid eligibility immediately. That's the good part, and that's the golden ticket for services for your kids in the state of Michigan. Medicaid comes with this immediately. And you get a whopping, if you're a single individual and paying rent, $771 per month in 2019 is the federal benefit rate, the FBR. That's the maximum you can get on SSI. If you're a couple, you get less. You get $1,157 if you're an SSI couple living together, because according to Social Security, you can live together cheaper. And then there's the value of the 1/3 reduction. So if you get your child started on SSI and you say, I don't want them to pay rent. Oh my God, that's, they just turned 18. If they don't pay rent, then they're only going to get $508.86 a month. And they don't get the 86 because Social Security never pays pennies and they always round down. So they're not going to get as much. You can take that money, you have to claim it on your taxes, but you can do it at whatever you want. Down payment for an apartment eventually, down payment for a house for them. That's up to you what you do with it, because on SSI you can have one house, one car. And that's acceptable. And then you also get a whopping $42 per quarter from the state because you're on SSI. The person I was stuck on the call with, we were laughing, well, you could buy pizza, maybe two, right? That's going to be it. This year, there was a 2.8% cost of living increase for Social Security. It's one of the biggest we've had in a long time. I've seen a lot of years where it was flat. Nothing was increased. And yeah, it's $21 increase. Doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot to people only getting $750 a month. All right. So in supplemental security income, it's children with disabilities. Parents must be low income for that to happen. And they still have to meet that childhood definition of a disability. It's at age 18, there's a redetermination. Because remember we said there was a childhood definition of disability and then an adult definition? At 18, they have to meet the adult definition. So they have to go in and be requalified by Social Security. And a lot of parents get a little confused at this point and say, the disability hasn't gone away, they still have it, why do I have to go do this? Because it's a new definition they have to meet. Anybody want to stop for a minute? Yeah.
Couple screens back, don't go back.
That's okay, you can go back.
No, I can remember, but if you're gonna talk about later, then
We're actually going pretty quick.
RSDI are you gonna talk about that?
That's retirement. I don't do retirement. RSDI, well, it's retirement, Social Security, disability insurance. It's all of them lumped together. So there's either retirement or there's disability. So if you're thinking if somebody's on a disability and then they hit full retirement age, when you get disability as an adult, say I got disability now, and then I hit full retirement age, I would stay at the same number because I got really early full retirement is what I ended up getting. And then I would just go right over to the retirement system and I wouldn't even know it. The money just comes from a different pot of money. So on the retirement side, it's over here, disability is over here. Now I hit full, I've been drawn over here. Now I hit full retirement age, it just comes out of the retirement side instead. That make sense?
That's okay, I don't wanna dominate the time. Well, my biggest questions would have, at some time in this hour.
When that parent retires.
When my child.
We're gonna go there. But wait, there's more.
Yeah, that's great. I will leave you too. Yeah, I knew that was in there somewhere, that's perfect, thank you.
Can you clarify what you said about the SSI, the two different amounts if you charge your
Sure, go back. Can we go back?
grant?
I think it's two slides.
This one?
Yep. So right here, it's the value of the 1/3 reduction is what Social Security calls it. Social Security is a resource program, so they look at everything that you have. So when you fill that out for the SSI side, you're saying, how much am I paying in rent? How much do I pay in clothing, in room and board, all those things. They don't look at your furniture. They don't look at the one house, the one car. But if you're not paying rent and you're not paying for your own food, they're not going to say how much is contributed to you. They're just going to reduce your benefit by 1/3. They're going to say that's the value that's being contributed to you. So they will automatically reduce your benefit by 1/3. Now,
So, my son gets SSI first, that's the amount that he got.
this one?
Yeah, but then, when I went to the Social Security office at one point, they said I could charge him rent and get the higher amount.
Yep.
But you said something about that we need to declare that.
Sure, because it's income coming into you. So that's an IRS thing. So anytime you're getting income coming in, and remember I told you the two talk to each other? So Social Security is saying, ooh, he's paying rent to her. So IRS is going to say, she's got about $1,200 in rent. And you know anything about IRS, anything over $600, you got to 1099 someone. So you got to declare that you got that rent money coming into your house.
So we should get a 1099 for that?
You should tell the IRS when you do your taxes that you got this money and how you got it, and talk to your accountant.
And the amount is the difference between.
No, you should tell them whatever. See, that's the funny part. So if you're only charging your child $50 a month for rent, they're still going to get the full amount. There is no set amount. They're going to look at you and say, well, I want to come live at your house for $50. Come on. But there is no set amount. There is no law about how much it has to be. No matter what it is, if you can show that he's paying some kind of rent, you won't get this 1/3 reduction.
So that was gonna be my question. What do you have to show that he's paying just on your taxes that you do it, or is there a form?
There isn't a form, so you do fill out as a fiscal intermediary a form that says this is where his money went, and you're going to see it coming out of his account, and they're going to want to know where it went and why. So that's what you would show them. Yep.
That's so odd, because just going through, well, not just, but
Yeah.
yeah, I was told I had to charge at least $300
That's what they used to say way back when.
in 2011.
And so here's my favorite question, and Kristen knows this favorite question. Please show me the policy. Please show me the policy that says I have to charge $300. There is no set dollar amount. Nothing.
You heard it here, folks.
That's my favorite question for everybody. Kristen knows that. Show me the policy.
Question at the Social Security office, is that where we would say that?
Yeah, if they say you've got to charge at least $300.
Right.
So you get some really good Social Security agents. Then you get some that feel like it's their money that you're spending, which are not the people that you really want to be working with. They're very judgmental and they're not very kind. I have to say overall our Ann Arbor office is a really good office because I've worked with offices around the state. As offices go, our Ann Arbor office is really, really good. There is no policies that says 300, and if there is, make them show it to you. But there hasn't been.
And then I think also with the experiences, the person could not have been more helpful, bent over backwards. However, apparently they don't have all the information, because she was like feeding me the information to put. So what I was told was to get the full amount, yeah, I can charge anything out, to get the full amount, I needed to charge $300.
But that might be something that they're being told to say. Doesn't mean it's right, but they may be, told to say that. Who knows?
I also heard that at other seminars too, way back.
The $300.
Oh, yeah, like
I'm
5,
a
6
former
years ago.
vet. I know their games. I work in EPA. The IRS and SSI are
Hmm.
like in bed.
But there's no policy that says it has to be this amount.
I learned, when you said that, show me the policies, I'm like right on. I'm like, yep, I used to say it all the time.
Yeah, that's the question I always ask. Show me the policy.
So do you declare the rent, whatever amount your child pays you?
Right.
Do you declare that as, there's that line on your tax form for rental income? Is that what you declare?
So that's an accountant question, then I don't go to that side. I do not have that skill, but I would definitely ask your accountant. You have to declare it. I know by law with the IRS, if you've received over $600, $600 is the magic number, you have to 1099 somebody. So as an employer, if I pay somebody over $600, they're contracted to me, I have to give you a 1099. Have to. Under, I don't, but per IRS, you have to report all the income you get too. That's all I'm going to say on that one. I don't want to be incriminated. So now you get the struggle of the application, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? And it feels like pushing that boulder up a hill. It really, really does. So for the application, there's a great site on Social Security Disability that kind of walks you through what you should bring in. And if you look on your very back page or your second to last page, it's the disability checklist. There's a whole bunch of things that they tell you to bring in. They're going to want all your bank records, so get your bank accounts. They're going to want to know all your doctors, and you need to give them all those doctors. You're going to have to sign a medical release because they're going to need to talk to those doctors to prove that there's a disability. Everything on that checklist, when you go in, make sure you take it with you. Makes life so much easier. Yep.
So I'm sorry, I have another, so like for children that are turning 18 and don't really have a bank account, you say you need to bring in all your stuff. They don't have that much, right?
They're going to make you get one.
They're gonna make us.
Yeah, they're going to make you get a bank account specifically for that child.
So I should probably do that before I go.
Sure, you can have a bank account with, $25, $30 in it, absolutely.
Okay.
That's not going to hurt them. Remember, the resource limit is $2,000. Make sure grandma's not leaving them in a will. Make sure there's no bonds that grandma bought them or the aunts and uncles. Because anything out there with their social security number on it or their name can be traced back.
Yeah, we had my parents write in their, change their will to,
Yeah, we do.
You can put it into a trust.
Right, a special trust.
That's your, you can absolutely have them put it into a special needs trust, absolutely. But wait till after they're 18 and get on SSI just to make it easier. So you're not fighting that battle. I always say get them in the program first and then do the things you need to do.
So program first and then the trust.
You can write the trust and not fund the trust. Now we do trust management. So I'm sitting on a lot of trusts that aren't funded. Parents are still working, parents are still alive, they've written the trust. The trust is there, it's just not funded. So you can do that, absolutely. That protects in case something happens. You can do that, that's fine. But you gotta make sure it's a special needs trust done by a special needs trust lawyer. Don't just go to any lawyer, go to somebody that knows how to write them. Because it does change a little bit all the time on that too, so you wanna make sure they're up to date on things.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So I don't mind, son's little, he's blind, so I kind of threw some of the stuff out the window. We have a phone interview coming up in 2 weeks. Is that the same process, but we're not going in, so is that the same?
It is, and that's new, and we're gonna get there in just a minute.
All right, thank you.
See where it says call for an appointment?
Yeah,
I'm a face-to-face person.
well, we would rather too, but they didn't want to do that, so that's why I was asking.
So where the policy says that they get away with not doing it.
Exactly, thank you. All right.
So when they say that, again, I say, where's the policy? It says you can call and make an appointment. It's new that they're not doing that. You always had to go to the office before for SSI, always. Now it's new, you don't have to, but I would go in there. You can take a number and go in there and sit and talk to them. You're gonna wait a while. Who knows when the worst time to go to a Social Security office is?
15. First.
First of the month. SSI checks come out on the first of the month. All SSI checks come out on the first of the month, unless it's a holiday, it might come out the day before. But when those checks don't show up, that office gets crowded. So go early in the morning if you have to go, and avoid the first of the month if you can. Now that doesn't mean it won't be crowded any other time, so please don't think you're ever gonna just walk in there. The only time I loved going in this is bad, in a Social Security office is when the government shut down, because there was nobody in there, but they had to be in there. It was so fabulous. I was just dropping off paperwork. I'm like, this is so cool. Never had this happen, and never will I again, but it was great.
So we were thinking was call for appointment was call and make an appointment.
Yep.
But that wasn't what they were doing. They were called to call us for an appointment.
Right, so you want to do it face-to-face. And we're gonna get there. I wanna go. So the application meeting, because I like those face-to-face meetings. I can't read people over the phone. I can't read people, what they're thinking, doing. You don't get that nice lady who walks you through it as you go. So check the checklist before you go. Bring your child. How else do they see that your child is blind or has autism or is in a wheelchair or whatever the case is? I say bring your child. Anything you give them anything, have them make copies and have them date stamp it. They will date stamp anything you give them. Social Security loses a lot of paperwork. And then they're going to say, well, you never gave it to us. But if you take something and you've got it date stamped and you can say, I got a date stamp copy in my house, I'll be happy to fax over to you. But I can prove that I gave it to you on that date. And dates are really important in Social Security world. So anything you give them, have them date stamp it. And here is where you're going to go. And there is their direct line into the office. Let me say this again. There is the direct line into the Ann Arbor Social Security office. Could you shut the cameras off, please? No. That gets you directly to Ann Arbor instead of the 800 number that's nationwide with the person reading the script. So there's the number to get in. So you can call and you can say, I've got a phone interview set up and I want it to be a personal interview instead. Absolutely. And when they say, we don't do that, you say, you show me the policy. Because that's not in their policy. Their new policy says, yes, you can do it online. Yes, you can do it with a phone interview. But there's still people working in those offices making some pretty good money.
Are they qualified to really just say, I mean, like, some kids you can't look at physically and say, oh yeah, they're disabled. So, you know, if you bring your child and they don't necessarily look disabled to you, to somebody, are they gonna say, oh, well, she didn't look that way to me?
No, because usually there's some behaviors too, you know, and they usually say, he's okay to leave if you need him to leave. Those kind of things, it's up to you always. I always take that individual with me. I don't care. Have them fill out the form. Can they fill out the form? There you go.
Or in our case, we brought our younger son who had his driver's license to take him when my son with the disability started misbehaving.
Bouncing off walls, absolutely. You want them to see this.
Well, my thing is that if they don't, if the disabilities are different, then people first recognize, they can sit quietly and calmly.
The mental illness side is the hard part of it, absolutely. When
And
you're,
so if this person, if I'm doing a face-to-face interview, how will they say, oh, that didn't look, that was.
I still want them to see that this is my child.
Okay.
This is how quiet they are. Here's all the medical documentation from all the years. No.
People qualified to say.
No, because we're going to show you how the application goes.
Okay.
Yep. But for somebody that has that really visible disability, it does make it easier. So what happens next in your, we're going there. You're,
Sorry.
you ruined my thunder. You need to. So first, the only thing that the office does when you have that appointment is they're going to check to make sure your child is not performing SGA, substantial gainful activity. Okay, we're going to have a little conversation about that. It's a certain dollar amount. They're not working over that dollar amount and haven't in the past. Then they're going to send your file to the Disability Determination Services. I didn't know there were 4 offices now in the state of Michigan. There's Detroit, Kalamazoo, Lansing, and Traverse City has one now. Tells you how things are changing, right? Your whole file goes up there, and can you copy this URL? And yep, I don't know if you just click on it if it'll get you there. Let's try that first. They're going to check the listing. It's okay. Can you cut and paste it and go onto the internet with it?
Doesn't like that. Hold on, let me do one more thing.
And then it went dark.
Let me do it this way.
Okay, cool. I know nothing about Macs. Isn't that terrible?
Now if we can get out of here. That's the question.
I want you to see this because this is the listing, what we call the listing for Social Security. And this is what they're going to look at. We won't see your email. We'll hide it.
There we go.
So you'll go to this page. See the impairment listing of impairments, adult listings, Part A? And when we go down, is this a touch screen?
No.
Okay. As we go down, keep going. I'm going to go into neurological disorders. Yep.
Okay.
So we're in neurological disorders, and then we're going to scroll up, please. Let's hope it's there. Maybe it's not. Can you scroll any? Scroll down whichever way.
There we go.
Oh, too fast, see.
Sorry.
That's okay. Keep going, keep going, keep going. No, Keep going where you were. Did they change it? Must have. Can I look for just 1 minute?
Yep.
I don't know how to go back.
Absolutely.
I want you guys to see what they're looking at, and I want you to see it in the easy, my glasses, where am I? I'm blind. The easiest way possible. Can I just go back with this?
Mm-hmm. You should be able to.
I thought it was congenital cognitive. Oh, is it there? It is. So under mental disorders, what a great place to put it is autism spectrum disorder. I don't think it should be there. I think it should be neurological, but they go by the DSM-5. So has anybody ever heard of the DSM-5 diagnostic manual? So what they're looking for is they're going to say, okay, this paperwork came in and there's a doctor says that this child has autism. And so we have medical documentation that says both the following: qualitative deficits in verbal communication, nonverbal communication, and social interaction, and significantly, I can't speak tonight, restricted, repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. And so they got to meet both of these things to qualify for it to be a qualifying disability. Now, if they don't have or meet all of these, don't panic, because I don't know if you know, 85% of children diagnosed with autism also usually have a secondary ADD, ADHD, something else. So when you're qualifying for a disability, it could be the one disability or a combination of disabilities that meet the requirement. So it doesn't just have to be this. If there's more, they can qualify that way too. Does that make sense?
We can find that on this link.
Pardon?
I can find that.
You can find that on that link. So you can go look up those disabilities and say, okay, these are the paperwork I'm looking for. Take those school IEPs. It's really important you do those IEPs so they can see that there was a behavior plan there, that there were issues, that they struggled in reading the whole time, that it's a lower IQ, whatever it is. That can be very helpful too. Don't overwhelm them, because that's not going to make them happy either. I do IEP work, so it's like the parent that walks in with 12 years worth of psychology report. I'm like, I don't have time to read that, sorry. What's going on this year? So the most relevant. But you can go out and look at all these different listings out there to see where they would qualify, and that's how they qualify. They have to first meet that listing at the Developmental Disability Services. The file goes from the office. Nope, they're not making SGA. It goes up to the Developmental Disability Services. Now, they're going to send you a letter and say, we're reviewing your case. Just want you to know this is where it is right now. We're reviewing the case. Give it a week or two and call them and say, excuse me, got your letter. What can I give to you to help out? Are you missing anything? Most people get turned down for disability because there's something missing, and DD Services, as we call them, is not going to go looking for it. If it's not in that file, they're not going to look for it. So you can call them and say, hey, what can I help you out with? You can send them stuff. Maybe it's that doctor's office that they sent a notice to 3 weeks ago, and the doctor's office still hasn't sent anything. And they're only going to sit on that file for so long. Don't assume because it's long that they're not qualified. Don't assume because it's short that they're not qualified. I was working with a gentleman, and I'll give you a great example. He was an older guy. He'd done physical labor most of his life, and he had a very severe stroke. And so while he was in the hospital, his wife went and applied for Social Security for him for disability, and he got it right away. And he thought that he was dying and no one was telling him, and that's why he got it. It had nothing to do with that. It was a severe stroke. It was his education. It was the job he had done. They look at all those kind of things. So short or long doesn't mean much. Don't panic either way. All right, now we need to go back. Thank you. Can we do slideshow from the top?
Yeah. I hope.
From current slide, is there one?
Maybe.
From current slide, right there, yep. Oh. Yay! So they're going to verify all your records. They're going to talk to your doctors, right? You sign those medical releases, and then they're going to send you a determination. Did you qualify? Did you not qualify? See something here? Remember we talked about substantial gainful activity and what it is, and I stuck this slide in here for a reason. Substantial gainful activity means, did you make $1,220 in any month? We always talk gross income. We don't care about taxes. Social Security could care less about your taxes. They're looking at your gross money. Or if you're blind, did you make $2,040 in a month? Blind people have better Social Security incentives. Why?
Because they can advocate.
They had better lobbyists, absolutely better lobbyists. So a non-blind person, that's SGA. A blind person, that's their SGA. Okay? So this is what we're talking about when we're looking at blind. And when we say substantial gainful activity, it means more than dollars. See how I have the dollars over here? And then see how I have the volunteers over here? If you go to the Social Security office and they say, are you working? And you say, I'm so busy. I don't have time to work. My back is killing me. But man, I've been volunteering 40 hours a week to stay busy. If you're volunteering, you could be out working. You're doing something that's substantial, and you could be making a gainful amount off of this activity, but you're choosing not to. So don't be saying that stuff when you go to the Social Security office. They're looking at what you're doing. People will turn you in. I've been there, I've seen this. And it's usually your family members that will turn you in. I had a Social Security office call me at one point and say, hey, we know she's working under the table. And I'm like, wow, that's news to me, but okay. Her family had turned her in. People get really mad if they think your disability or you can't see your disability and you're on disability and you're out playing basketball, and how dare you be playing basketball? It's therapeutic for you, but how dare you be playing basketball while you're on Social Security disability? Those kind of things happen, so watch your P's and Q's when you're in the office. You know, if you tell that person he goes out and plays basketball, you need to say that's extremely therapeutic for him. That's a sensory issue for him to do that kind of thing. Because they do, some of them do twist and turn things.
And that person, this is what's concerning me, is that person qualified to know a disability?
No, but that's where all the paperwork at the DD services is gonna, you're right.
And that person also can't say, oh, well, it didn't look that way to me, because, you know, we go behind the scenes at work, or, you know what I'm saying? So does that happen, and is that,
No, because that paperwork goes to another office.
okay?
It does not go to them. It goes to a different office. So if your application is denied, do not reapply. Got that? If you're denied, do not reapply. You need to appeal. Because if you appeal, it still goes back to your date of original application. If you reapply, it starts with a new date. So if I applied in January and I got denied in, let's say, September, it's slowing down in Social Security world. I sometimes that long, sometimes not. I get denied in September. And I think, oh my God, I got to go reapply because I can't. And then I reapply in September, October. October is my new start date. If I appeal, I still go back to January. So if I win my appeal, I'm going to get paid back to January. If I reapply, it starts in October. So don't reapply, appeal that decision. And find yourself a lawyer, find somebody that's good in the area to do this appeal. All right, medical benefits. I do want to go over medical benefits because that's why you're all here, because that's our biggest fear, is how are we going to keep these benefits, right? All right, if you just go to the next one. So on these sides, on SSDI, you have Medicare coverage after 24 months, except for if you have ALS or if you have end-stage renal disease. Those two, you don't even have to have SSDI, you can get on Medicare. You'll qualify for SSDI, but for those two, you start immediately. There is no wait period because it costs so much for dialysis and things like that, and they had really good lobbyists. So Medicare covers, Part A covers hospitalization, and that's free for everybody. Part B covers providers, your doctors, your blood work, your x-rays, things like that. There's a cost to that, depends on how much you make. If you make above $170,000, it's more. If you make below, and I can't remember what the cost is right now for Part B, I apologize. Part D is the prescription drug coverage. There's an extra cost of that. And some people get that Part C coverage that kind of covers it all, covers everything that Part A and Part B don't pay, and drug coverage, it can all be mixed into one. But remember, there's no resource limit on this side. And you can appeal Medicare decisions too. I just did a little webinar on that today. It's not real easy, but you can. That's kind of nice too to know. And then on the SSI side, remember I said if you get SSI, you automatically get Medicaid in this state, which is the golden ticket. So we're a 1634 state. That's the law that says if I'm getting $1 worth of SSI or I still qualify for SSI, I automatically get Medicaid. And what happens is when I qualify for SSI, the Social Security computer tells the state of Michigan, yep, they've got SSI, turn on their Medicaid. So it seems seamless to you. You never see it. But somebody had to tell the state of Michigan because Medicaid comes from the state of Michigan. Medicare comes from the federal government. Medicaid comes from the state of Michigan. And here's our Medicaid saying for you all. If you're ever thinking of moving, the person that trained me in Social Security, she was a lovely woman with a great little southern accent. You seen one Medicaid program, you seen one Medicaid program, because every state is different. So don't think you're going to pick up your Medicaid and move it to Texas or move it to Oklahoma or move it to Maine and it's going to be the same. Every state decides their rules for Medicaid. But in our state, there's two ways you can do it. You can be either really poor, Texas, so even if you have SSI in Texas, you don't necessarily qualify for Medicaid. You have to have less than that somehow. But in this state, as long as you got $1 or qualification to Medicaid or it's SSI, you have Medicaid. All right, it covers hospitalization, it covers everything, but you're always going to have that $2,000 resource limit for SSI Medicaid. Always. Okay? Go ahead. Do you have a question?
So when he retires,
We're going to get there.
it's still, okay.
But wait, there's more. Any decision made by SSA is appealable. So just because they made a decision doesn't mean it sticks like glue. Usually they make a lot of wrong decisions. And when you get the letters, Social Security letters say you have 30 days to appeal this, and we start counting that time 5 days after the date of the letter to adjust for mailing time. Social Security is really good about that. If you get a Social Security letter, answer that Social Security letter. Don't ignore it, because ignoring it is the absolute worst thing you can do. They're going to make a decision, and it's not going to be in your favor. There is no statute of limitations on Social Security. We've had people that they've come back at them 20, 30 years later for work. There is no statute of limitation, and all of a sudden they owe $60,000 to Social Security. Save all that paperwork. And I know it's overwhelming, but don't lose the Social Security paperwork, because they're going to want to see it, because trust me, they haven't saved it, and they aren't going to believe you. Now, if you get 3 copies of the same letter, no, you don't have to save all 3 copies of the letter. But save your Social Security paperwork. I can't emphasize that enough. That's why I say date stamp things, because they lose stuff. Fax them over, save that fax cover sheet. All those things prove that you gave them whatever they were looking for. Report, report, report. When you sign that I'm going to take Social Security, disability, or SSI, you're saying that you're going to report any earnings. You're going to report if you got married, if you got divorced, if you're attending school, if you leave school, and never throw away any of your paperwork. You have to report those things to them. That's law. Your sources, this is the Program Operations Manual, POMS as we call it, for Social Security. You can go to this link and start looking through all these laws. You will fall asleep if you need a good way to fall asleep one night. That's a good thing to go start reading, unless you like reading those kind of things. Remember, if there's 2 sides to Social Security, you're either looking at the SSI side on POMS, you're looking at retirement, or you're looking at Social Security disability. Make sure what site you're on. It's all on the one site, but make sure what category you're under. And make sure when you go to that office, if I work in a Social Security office, I work on the SSI side or I work on the SSDI side, which is fine, but when you make that appointment, make sure it's somebody that works on the SSI side if that's what you're applying for. They know the rules on the SSI side, not the SSDI side. So you want to make sure who you're talking to. And there's only one person in that whole office that knows work incentives mostly. It's your work incentive coordinator for the office. But make sure, tell them why you're coming in and who you want to talk to. Want to talk to somebody that works on the SSI side. Make sense? There are so many rules to Social Security, and every rule has an exception to it. It's kind of like we do the wait, there's more, you know. So make sure you have somebody that knows what they're talking about. All right. And then if you want to read the Medicaid manual, because remember, Medicaid comes from the state of Michigan. There's your Bridges Eligibility Manual, BEM. It's all the policy manuals for the state of Michigan. That's a bunch of other fun reading. Do you have any kind of a whiteboard or a dry erase board? Because I do want to talk about, and the best way for me to do it is to write.
Let's see what I can find.
We're going to talk about what happens, and now why do I tell you to run to Social Security? On your very last page, or your second to last page, it says the definition of developmental disability. There's a state definition and there's a federal definition. They just vary just a little bit. But what you have to qualify down the road to draw off of parents is a developmental definition, a developmental disability. So you have to meet that qualification in Social Security's eyes, which you probably already have by getting on SSI, right? When we're looking at disability for adults turning 18, we're looking, is it a developmental disability? Is it going to be a long time? There is that occasional where that child may be hurt or injured. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the kids that have autism, the kids that have severe multiple impairments, things like that. So down the road, as long as you got on to SSI first, let me say that, I want you guys to write that down. Get on SSI first prior to age 22. SSI before age 22. Because if you did that, then when your parent's Social Security retires, you are going to draw off their record and not lose your Medicaid. But wait, there's more, right? I thought she'd have a whiteboard here because this is my best way. So let's say it this way. There's $3,000 is your family maximum value. I'm making up numbers, please. You're going to retire and you're going to draw $2,000 a month. Your child has a disability. Your child collected SSI first, Supplemental Security Income, prior to age 22. And now you're going to Social Security retire full benefit. Your child is then going to draw, instead of the $771 a month, but they were there first, had to be on SSI first. They're now going to draw $1,000 a month. It does not mean that you would get that $1,000 if your child wasn't drawing off of it. It's just the way they figured out. It's about half the parent's income. Yep, half the parent's Social Security.
Do you have to apply for it, or is it automatic?
No, it's going to be automatic. Should be. And then what happens is, remember how we said SSI told the Department of Health and Human Services that you've got Medicaid because you had SSI? Now they're going to tell them you don't have SSI anymore, so they're going to shut off your Medicaid, your child's Medicaid. But they shouldn't do that. What you have to do is get to them first, to the Department of Health and Human Services, where Medicaid comes from in the state of Michigan, and let them know your child is now going to be on a DAC, the Disabled Adult Child. They qualify for DAC Medicaid. It's the same kind of Medicaid, gives them all the services that they had before. We have a... Gives them all the same kind of services they had before. Thank you. Oh, in lovely pink. Now let's see where we can. I'll do it. I'll hold it, guys, and we'll make this work. Oh, maybe not. Yep. I'll know next time to bring it. Thank you. So you had SSI, right? And you get your $771 a month in 2019. And then your parent retires. And your parent is going to get $2,000 a month in retirement. This is that RSI, Retirement Security Income. That's why they call it RSDI, Retirement Social Security Disability Insurance. So it's your retirement. So then the child's going to get, it's typically 50%, depending on how many people are drawing off that record. I've seen up to 6. It's pretty ugly. So then the child's going to now lose their SSI, right? Because they're going to get $1,000, which is more, yay, off the parent's record. The parent is still going to get $2,000. The child's going to get $1,000, right? But because this amount is so high and it's above the federal poverty level, then they lose their right to SSI Medicaid. But you go to the Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, right? I always say M for Michigan. And you tell them that your child is now a DAC, and you're going to have to fill out some paperwork. Here's their name, here's their address. You're thinking, well, they've been giving us Medicaid all along. They want it all again. And you'll have DAC Medicaid. It's called DAC Medicaid. And that still gives them all those services that they need.
Is there an income limit for DAC Medicaid?
There is. There's that $2,000 resource limit.
Resource limit, right. But, yeah,
Yep, it's a resource limit.
but they can put it
Because
in
that's
their.
basically Medicaid.
But the $1,000 is already over like that income limit, right? That's what caused them to lose it to first place. But because there's a law, okay, you want to go with the bangs. There's a law that says if I lost my SSI because of my parent retiring, then I'm entitled to DAC Medicaid. That's a federal law.
Have to be more careful on making sure the money goes into an account.
You just have to make really sure the MDHHS knows that and make sure the money goes over into the trust. Remember, you can't put their money in a trust. You can do an ABLE.
What's the thing the bank accounts?
ABLE, the ABLE Act.
The ABLE.
Yeah.
You can put it in an
Yep,
ABLE.
and ABLE can pay for rent, which is really nice, that, you can't do with the SSI side. But you have to be careful on trusts. There's first-party trusts, there's third-party trusts. And if you establish a third-party trust of money that was never theirs, inheritance, right? Then that's a third party, but if you put any of their money, income that they have, into that third-party trust, it negates the third-party trust. So a third-party trust you can inherit. So if you have other children and you say if something happens to this child, I always think long distance, let's go all the way down the road. So if something happens to this child, then I would like this child to be able to pick up that money. You can do that with a third party. You cannot do that with a first party. So you have to go to a trust attorney that knows trusts. Okay, now that you're all confused and have that dazed look.
That's why I've been to this like a million times.
Is DHHS the same as DHS?
Yes. So they all combined again, so they're the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, yeah. Yeah. And there's talk of splitting them apart again. And CSTS is CMH. Yeah.
Your example of $1,000 of child off of the parent's record, I don't believe right now is actually over the federal poverty limit.
It could not be.
Okay.
So you could still qualify for, how many different kinds of Medicaid do you think there are in this state? I think last count I had was 37. So they could qualify for a different kind. It would be, they could, but just put them on DAC. It's easier. Just get them over there and make it go. Yep. Yep. No, there are no, don't feel sorry.
I don't wanna, so who do you tell beforehand, the DHHS?
Yeah, open up a DHS, start the application online, just put it up there. And the new interface for Bridges is DHHS. It's the food stamps, it's the Helm Help, all of it.
I was gonna say, my daughter has a DHS worker, but
Right, but she's not a DAC Medicaid, and that's where it goes south, is when she becomes a DAC Medicaid. The state of Michigan is playing some games right now, and I don't care if it's recorded or not. They're putting people on the wrong Medicaid, so there's less of a reimbursement to CMH, and CMH is projecting a $10 million deficit this year. So hold on, because we're going for a wild ride again. Anybody that's got CMH services, it's going to get rough again. A lot of it's being done by the legislators playing games. A lot of it's being done, Milliman figures out the rates and how it gets paid, and we'll talk about that when we talk about CMH, but won't let anybody else know how they figure out those rates. So a couple of things that we're watching right now is the lame duck session, because it's going to be a wild ride in the lame duck session, and there's talk of opening up the mental health code, and that's going to be ugly. If they open up the mental health code, it's going to get sticky. They're going after person-centered planning is what we're hearing. And anybody knows CMH, they know what person-centered planning means. So watch the lame duck session. We put out alerts on our Facebook. Please call your legislators, and if you've got other folks around the state, these legislators are usually pretty good. It's the ones in other areas that don't like Medicaid, would like it to go away, and would like it to be privatized. There's pilots that are coming in the state this year at the end in October on privatization. There's 3 of them coming up. In Kent, Flint, and Saginaw, I want to say, are the 3 pilots. There was a big movement to privatize. There's $2.4 billion worth of Medicaid dollars up for grabs. And there were, what we feel were promises made to big healthcare to have the Medicaid. And if you look at big healthcare for the last couple of years, that's where they're making all their money is Medicaid. So there's a couple of things that I really want you guys to keep watching. Watch our Facebook page. Our website's a little wonky right now. We haven't had time to get it updated yet.
Monthly meeting you have,
We do. We have a self-determination monthly meeting.
but we're not self-determination, Austin's not, right?
No, but you can come. Anybody can come. That's fine. We're talking mostly self-determination, but yeah.
What's your Facebook page?
It's Washtenaw Association, Washtenaw ACA. No.
Do you have the same self-determination meeting as Britt Paxton?
No.
Oh, yours is with community advocacy.
Ours is at our office and our building. You're more than welcome to come if you do self-determination. Anybody's welcome to come, really.
Yeah, no, I have self, or my daughter has self.
Yeah, it's a group of parents that have self-determination. If we turn the cameras off, we can talk more about it, but I can't talk more about it any other way.
Yeah, there are two different meetings, because there's also meetings under Britt Paxton.
Right.
Quarterly.
So we are now talking with Laura Demuse, who's the self-determination coordinator for the state of Michigan, and she has reached out to us. She's writing policy on self-determination and wants our input. So she'll be at our next self-determination meeting in January, which is really great. And I don't know if you know what self-determination is. You can either have an agency provide services through CMH, or you can hire the people yourself. And that's self-determination.
I do have a question.
Sure,
I think I heard it correctly, but I want to make sure.
absolutely.
DAC Medicaid is still resource limited?
Yes.
Okay.
DAC Medicaid is still resource limited.
And he would have that the rest of his life and not after the 24 months go to Medicare?
Nope, he'll have both.
Oh,
So after the 24 months, he'll go to Medicare. So you can have private insurance, you can have Medicare, and you can have Medicaid. I know somebody has all three. It's like the trifecta of insurances, right? Usually, in about 99% of the cases, is your private insurance pays first, then your Medicare. Your Medicaid is always payer of last resort, except when it comes to services, because nobody else provides services.
and diapers.
And yeah, and diapers and all kinds of things like that that are needed. And that's how those work. But that's a whole different day's worth of conversation. Are you all kind of glazed now? Are you in alphabet like jumbo in your heads?
So when you say, to do it before age 22, does that just mean like, it's gonna be their 22nd birthday, or just any time?
I'm saying getting them in there at 18. Get them in there at 18.
I'll put that on my list.
Yeah. Get them in there at 18. Absolutely before 22, because what happens is I have a lot of 80-year-old parents that walk in my office with their 60-year-old child who never got on SSI first, who has no qualification for Medicaid and has lived at home the whole time, and the parent is about to die, and what do? And there are no resources for that.
And did you say we could go a little bit earlier than 18? Like 17?
They used to let you go a couple months ahead, month of the 18th birthday. They stopped that. But remember, what's your favorite question when they say we can't do this? Show me the policy.
So I
Please show me the policies. Please show me the POMS citation, P-O-M-S. POMS citation that says that. They know what POMS is. And when you start talking SGA, right, all those good terms, they're thinking, ooh, this one knows something. We got to be a little careful. They do. When you walk in and know what you're talking about, they have a whole little bit different attitude. Not all of them. Let me tell you, I'm going to say it again. I know the manager over at the Social Security office too. They're really good at this office. Really good at this office. You might hit one or two that aren't so good. You can go to the manager and talk to him about it, and he'll straighten it out. I mean, he's just a really good guy. Other offices, not so much.
Does it matter which office you go into?
You have to go to your office where you're located. So if you live in Washtenaw County, you would go over to Ann Arbor. There's a couple of folks from Livingston that come down here too. You have to go to, yeah. It's Adrian or Jackson? Adrian. They're not so bad either. I worked with them. Your MRS is fabulous. Your Adrian MRS is absolutely out of this world. I've seen them do incredible things. They need some training over here.
I don't know if you have any advice. What I find really scary is, well, first of all, what you said about the local office is absolutely my experience. It's like crazy exciting, because I went in there expecting the worst
Yeah,
and really had a positive experience.
absolutely.
And they were extremely helpful.
Yep.
What I find scary, and I don't know what to do, is that, so for example, I called, let's say over the past 2 years, 3 times, same question, same person. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And nicest guy in the world. I don't know if it's and get 3 different answers. And he truly, like the one time I called, he said, I said, but you told me last time this, and he's really nice, I'm not being belligerent or anything. He said, I know I did, I just found out today, I was wrong, it's this. And I'm like,
And in his defense, I give him credit because when I first started doing this job and I had to go out and talk to people, and I say, sure, you can do that. That's exactly, there's this great work incentive, because that's what I did. And then I had to call him back, hey, you know how I told you that? Yeah, that wasn't right. So they do change policy too.
it's like,
Ask him about POMS. So where's that citation? Where is that citation? And on the front page of the POMS manual, it'll say updates. So what's the latest update on things? They don't change much in Social Security because it's always a fight in Congress. It's always a fight in Congress about changing rules on Social Security. Blind have better work incentives, right? So if I'm looking at work incentives and I am not blind, I can write off my medication, because if I don't take my medication, I can't go to work, right? Or if I need a wheelchair and I have to buy it, I can write that off. If I'm blind, I can write off my lunch, my clothes, my bus ride, anything that has to do with work I can write off because they're better lobbyists. It's a complicated system and everything has a caveat to it. I mean, everything. There are, if you have spina bifida, can you lose your Social Security because you work too much? No, not if your father was in the Vietnam War and he was exposed to Agent Origin. That's why you got spina bifida. So there's always something out there that some congressman or senator passed because their constituent came to them. So the, Native Americans have whole different rules. You can get food stamps and it doesn't count against you. You can get casino money and it doesn't count against your food stamps. There's all different rules for everybody, so make sure you're reading those POM citations. And they're not always easy to understand. Give us a call. We'll see if we can interpret it. We read them a lot. Do you have a question? She's not allowed to ask questions. Yes, she is. She's a troublemaker.
Can you explain what happens if a young person does not get SSI before their parent retires? And then they start drawing?
Off the parents' records,
Yeah.
they're getting too much. They didn't have that entitlement. You have to have the SSI Medicaid entitlement to go on DAC Medicaid. So because you never had the SSI entitlement, Medicaid entitlement, you will not keep Medicaid. You'll be on what we call a spend down Medicaid, which is the worst thing in the world. And we have some people that their parents died when they were young and they just went right on the DI system. You have to go on the DI system if you qualify for it. That's why we say don't get on the parent retire before we're sure the kids had SSI first. And when that happens, spend down Medicaid looks kind of like this. I get $1,401 a month in Social Security. It's too much to qualify for Medicaid, right? So to get on spend down Medicaid, I have to spend $1,000 a month or incur $1,000 a month in medical expenses. I can keep $401 because that's our shelter area in Washington County. The state says that we can live off of $401 to pay our rent, our food, everything, our clothing, and then Medicaid will kick in. And you have to do that every single month on spend down, and it's really ugly. Get them on SSI first. And SSI has Medicaid, and Medicaid's that golden ticket. Right now, watch that lame duck session. It's been troubling times for disability right now, and it's really sad because I think this is the most vulnerable population we have. And we're seeing some really bad things happening with this vulnerable population. So talk to your legislators. Here's the problem. Term limits are good, term limits are bad. Term limits are bad because we're retraining every few years all about these really complicated systems. You're all sitting there with a glazed look. It took me years to get all this down. Now I'm trying to explain to somebody that's got 2 years in office how this all works. And it doesn't really help. So, any other questions?
So, and maybe you did go over it, I missed it, but remember we talked about people, you say resources 2,000 to 3,000 for the SSI.
2,000 for an individual, 3,000 for a couple. When we say that, that's what that means.
They can't make any more than that.
That means that they can't have any more than that in the bank at one time.
And the bank at one time, okay.
So I have people that walk around with stacks of cash. Scares the bejeebers out of me. Because if they put it in the bank, it's going to be found. But now there is ABLE. ABLE, they can put it in an ABLE account and it doesn't count against them as a resource. And they can use that ABLE account to pay their rent, which you cannot do with trusts. I can't pay for somebody's rent with a trust. But, so that works out really well. On SSI, SSI, SSDI, two different worlds, but ABLE, you can do that. You can pay for food, and there's almost, I don't think, anything that you can't pay for out of ABLE,
Yeah.
which is really nice. And you can have up to $100,000 in an ABLE account. But an ABLE account is not inheritable. It will go back to the state because it entitled you to have Medicaid.
The money goes right to the ABLE account, is what you're saying, instead of their own bank account.
Right, you can just put the money into an ABLE account.
You can split it, couldn't we?
You can split it between a third-party trust, a first-party trust, and an ABLE account if you want.
Anything in the ABLE account goes back to,
The ABLE account will go back to the state of Michigan
Yep.
upon death, yeah.
but it allows them to do more.
Right, so if you want to just keep a small amount in there, just for them to do something, yeah.
What is an ABLE account? How do you get one?
You can,
New,
it's new.
we haven't.
There's ABLE at the state of Michigan that you can go to. It's run through the Department of Treasury, kind of like your college savings account, same thing. Mm-hmm. You can take an ABLE account and push, I think you can switch it over to a college savings account for another kid.
Can you go the other way?
I don't know.
Put it in there? That makes sense.
Oh, you can only put up to $14,000 a year in there, so if you've got it going that way, yeah, probably. ABLE. It's brand new. It's something that we finally said, why do people have to be so poor? Why do you have people living off nothing? So this is a way to protect that money, to protect the Medicaid, that resource limit. And those resource limits haven't been changed in years, like the 80s. So that $3,000 isn't very much.
So when they're checking the account to make sure you don't have that magical number in there, it's just the personal bank account, not the ABLE account, is what you're saying.
Right. The ABLE account's protected income. It doesn't count against you. But they are checking to see that the ABLE account is over $100,000. They'll tell you you can go over, but don't, because then you do lose your SSI. There is an SSI limit on that.
Not that much.
Yeah, I know. Like we've got $100,000 laying around, right? I like to put that warning out there.
So you have to open this account like through the websites, or like do banks know what that is already?
I don't know if you can do it individually at a bank. I know it's run through the Treasury Department. It has to go through the Treasury Department. I think you have to go through them.
There's a website.
That you go in and sign up. Perfect, thanks.
We haven't done it yet, but
No, you
we're gonna have to
Yeah.
get some.
Why
It's
did
a few
you
years
think the ABLE account was, didn't, when it first came out, wasn't it promoted as like related to housing? But it's more than housing?
It's more than housing. You can use it for just about anything. It's just a way to keep from going over that 2,000, right? If you go over that 2,000, you're penalized and you lose it all. Well, you could lose all your support staff. You could lose everything. So this is a way to allow people with disabilities to have more than $2,000 in the bank and not be punished for it.
And the only negative
Is that if something happens to them, it goes back to the state because it protected, because the state was paying for their health care.
That's fair.
And, yeah,
I'm surprised it would be for.
a lot of people get mad about that, but I'm good with that.
Just want to clarify, you're not saying that a person's SSI can be direct deposited into an ABLE?
No,
It goes into a
no, it goes from your,
a PNC or-
you write your little check to
a refugee.
transfer money, yeah,
So that way they got see where it's going,
right.
So, okay, say I set up a special needs trust.
Mm-hmm,
God, Lord forbid, I pass away before my daughter turns 18.
right.
Is it better, I guess, like if I set up my will, say I'm gonna get insurance money, whatever, will that hurt her if I put her in the special needs?
No,
trust?
because it's protected in a special needs trust. Always go to a lawyer, I'm telling you, always go to a lawyer on these things. But because the money in a special needs trust does not count as a resource. It's only for amenities, it's for those things that Medicaid can't buy.
Okay.
And that's the way we look at it. So I've got people that take vacations. I've got people that buy new clothes with it. We buy bedding, we buy shoes. We buy movie tickets because they like to go to the movies. You can buy those kind of things with it, but you can't pay rent with a special needs trust on the SSI side. You can, but it'll reduce the amount of that SSI. On the SSD side, it's altogether different, and when they move, that's okay, the trust will move with them. But you can set it up and just have it there, ready to go.
Okay.
We've got a trustee that's now in Korea, and I'm hoping that nothing ever happens to that trustee, because I don't know how we're going to transfer that trust over to us. If something happens to him, that's going to be a real treat. Any other questions? It's been an interesting evening. It's okay, I'm sure you probably have more.